What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Blood on the Razor Wire TV, where we bring it to you real and we bring it to you raw. Back in DC, back at Lorton today with a brother that spent a bunch of time at Lorton, but not as a prisoner. But anyway, I'll let him tell his story. Tell the people who you are, brother, where you're from, and let's get into it.
Well, Chad, my nickname is Jay. People call me Jeff. I was born in Washington, D.C. I was raised primarily right across the D.C. line in Capitol Heights. Just to put some context to that, right by Benton Park Recreation Center for people who live in D.C. I was a Lorton correctional officer from 1989 to 1998. And after that, I joined the Metropolitan Police Department, where I spent 25 years as a police officer, now retired, Chad. Retired last year.
Well, I know it feels good, right?
Feels great.
You ever missed the job?
The police department?
Either place.
I don't miss the police department at all, but Lorton, it's crazy. I kind of miss it.
You know, you meet a lot of people that have been to prison, spent a bunch of time in there, and sometimes they miss it, but they don't miss it. You know, they don't miss being imprisoned, but it was their life for so long, and they became accustomed to it, and that's what I think they end up missing.
Chad, I understand that feeling because when I left, I missed it, but it's funny that you would. It's hard to fathom.
It's absolutely, it's absolutely nuts. But anyway, young brother from DC, What gets you into the Department of Corrections? You know, I mean, it's probably unexpected, but how does it happen?
Yeah, Chad, I was at a funeral. My best friend coming up was named Floyd Favors Jr. And if you were around my age, which is 59 in DC area, everybody knew Floyd because he was a world bantamweight champion. And at that time, you know, the amateur fighters fought a lot on TV, right? They was on Wild Murder Sports regularly. So he was like a household name. And that was my best friend, my daughter's godfather. I'm his daughter's godfather. And I was at his mother's funeral. Miss Dorothy Favors, she's like a mom to me. And she was killed by a drunk driver. And I was at her funeral, and this neighborhood dude came up to me. He's like, "Jay, what you doing there?" And I said, I told him what I was doing for a living. And he said, you need to apply for a job down Lorton. I said, Lorton? He said, yeah, man, they paying $20,000 a year, and you get medical benefits and everything. And at that time, $20,000 a year was a lot of money. And I had a young child at the time, Chad. So I said, let me explore this. So I put in my application, and I was accepted. And it turned out to be the best experience in my life when it comes to learning. And it made me who I am today.
What's it like for you to walk into there? Did you hear, the stories, how much violence was there, that there was, people getting killed there, booty bandits? I mean, what was it like for you that first day walking into a place like that?
Well, Chad, coming from this area, I had friends incarcerated in Lorton that I used to go visit, but I didn't know at that time that I would be working there. I had friends. I had like a big brother, Larry Washington, his nickname was Scoop. Friend of mine, Donnell, Rock, Abe, and I used to go visit them down Youth Center 1 and Youth Center 2. But I never thought I would be working down Lorton. So my first experience, let me say this, Chad, while we was in the correctional academy, we had to spend a day at each facility. It was a part of our training. So my first facility I was in was DC jail. And when I walked into DC jail, it smelled like rat poison and road spray combined. But this is my first day ever in the prison. It was DC jail was my first one. And like I said, I was on OJT, on the job training. And it didn't take long, Chad, because it was count time. And I never forget this guy. Was a huge inmate, and he refused to go in for count. And like I say, Chad, this is my first day. And he refused to go into his cell for count. He was protesting something. I don't remember what it was at the time. And the officer called me to the bubble. He said, come inside the bubble. And I said, okay. Next thing you know, a goon squad came in. Man, they bum rushed this dude. He was a big dude, Chad. Next thing you know, this dude was on the ground. They put him in cuffs. And the jail had these metal steps. They didn't walk him down them steps, Chad. They dragged him down them steps. And I was like, that was my first introduction. And I was like, do I really want to do this? So that was my first introduction to corrections. And that was on OJT.
I mean, it's an introduction of what that world's really like. But eventually you end up at Lorton. You know, we always hear these stories about Lorton was so dangerous. It was so violent. But not a lot of people to actually talk about what was really going on there, unless, of course, you see the documentary by Kareem Mowat, right? What was that? The Lorton House of Terror or something like that?
Right. I paid for that. I watched it on Amazon, so I did support it. Kareem, what is your show?
I ordered it as well. I wanted to watch it. Me and my wife sat back and watched it. So, you know, while you're in Lorton, what is the violence like when you get there, though? I mean, is it really as bad as they say, or was it, you know, periodically? What was it like?
Lord, Chad, I never seen a fist fight in Lorton my whole 9 years. Every violent act was a stabbing. And my first thing that I saw that was really violent, it occurred on an officer. That was my first. It was this guy, his name was Jack. We called him, he was a 5-1 officer. He was the yard officer. And to be a yard officer, his duty assignment was to control the yard. So, and to have that post, you had to be kind of aggressive, Chad. Because when it was time for him to go in the dorm for count time, he had to get him in. Count time. So he was an aggressive dude. He was a good dude, but he was an aggressive dude. And I think I might have been down Lorton for maybe no more than a month at this time. And they call a code. And we ran to the front of it was like the center court. And he was surrounded by, it was a swarm of inmates, Chad, and he was being assaulted. And I was new at this time. But we had to push through this crowd, Chad, and pull him up out of it. And Chad, when I say that was intimidating, we had to push through these guys, you know, and everybody had knives. So we had to go up in this crowd, pull him out, Chad, and everybody got injured that day except me.
Except you. Well, thank God, right?
I thank God to this day, Chad, that I made it out unscathed. That's not you.
I know that you were there. You know, I had interviewed Fly. I know you were there when Fly arrived. And I know you know a little bit about him and probably interacted with him a little bit. What was it like when Fly, you know, came on that compound?
I never forget this because, Chad, I used to run the visitor hall when Fly came on the compound, the gym/visitor hall. And I remember being in the gym, and I heard this dude come in the gym and said, "Fly on the compound, fly on the compound." And the way he said it, Chad, was like it was a celebrity, right? So in my mind, I was like, man, who the fuck is this Fly dude? So not too long after that, Chad, I saw him walk into the gym. And when he walked into the gym, the first thing I noticed, Chad, he had like his shirt unbuttoned, and he had like a chain on, straight 70s, like a chain. And I never forget this, Chad, because when I looked at him, like when you looked at Fly back then, you didn't see anything. You saw like a blankness, like you could tell he didn't care about too much. So I knew he was a dangerous dude just by my first interaction with him. But let me say this about Fly. In my encounters with him, he was never disrespectful to me and always disrespectful to him. So I never had a bad interaction with him, but I definitely knew the power he had on the compound because you could see it. He was there. I saw the younger inmates gravitate towards him. And I knew he had the power, Chad. And I'm going to say this. If he wanted to get somebody hurt and I'm saying inmate or officer, I think he had the power to do it. Not do it himself, but get people to do it. That's how much power Fly had. And that's for me just
Very influential dude, right?
very influential.
Nice with his hands. You ever see him, you were running the gym and stuff down there. You ever see him in that ring?
Yeah, you know what? I think his first day, he took control of the boxing team, Chad. I think it was the first day he took control, Chad. And, I remember this one dude we had over there, and I think his name was Pierre Turner. He was a big dude, so he didn't have a lot of sparring. And I think a lot of people didn't want to get in the ring with this dude and spar, give him some sparring. So this particular day, I saw Fly get in the ring with him. And at this time, Fly might have been in his late 30s, when I came across him. So I'm thinking Fly this was like in 91, 92. So if you talk to Fly, you can ask him how old he was at the time. And he got in the ring with Pierre Turner, and Chad, they went for it. And Pierre Turner was a young guy, and he was like solid, built solid, muscles everywhere, big dude. And Chad, they banged. When I say they banged to the point where if I had to judge the fight, I would say it was a draw. And, Pierre was a young dude, Chad, and Fly was in his late 30s at the time. So imagine Fly at 20.
I mean, hey, listen, when I first spoke to Fly, in the beginning, I felt like, man, I don't know how this interview is going to go, but I ended up liking the dude. He calls me periodically. He spent, 50 years of his life in prison. Definitely a dangerous dude. And I know you worked the visiting room too, right?
I saw that interview, and when I saw Fly, what I saw there wasn't what I saw at Lorton. So, and that was good to see.
I think he turned his life around. It's crazy, right? Let's talk about this. I know earlier you said you're 59, brother. I had you at 40, man. But and then I'm like, damn, you spent all that time out there in the street. You spent all that time in prison. You both you're not too far in age from Fly, actually, right? And both from DC. And look how two lives from DC take different courses. You know what I mean? He spends 50 years of his life in prison, 26 years in the hole. You spent 25 years, I think, of your life in the Metropolitan Police Department, 9 years in Lorton. It's just crazy. Let me ask you this, being a young officer.
Let me say something about that. Yeah. Move on. And I'm glad you brought that up, because in my neighborhood, 90% of the people went to prison. I was the 5%. So majority of my neighborhood did go to prison, Chad.
What was it like for you being a young officer, right? Seeing these dudes from your neighborhood, man, in prison with 30, 40 years. You ever just feel like, damn, man? You ever feel bad for these dudes? Like, wow, man, look what's happening to my community.
I did, because people might not understand this who never worked in a prison, but bad people, good people do bad things. Bad people do good things. So when you in there day after day, year after year with these guys, you get to know them. You get to see their human side, Chad. So you're going to be fond of some of these dudes. And one thing I could say about Lorton, the inmates in Lorton, and this might be in all correctional institutions, your word was your bond. So if they told you they was going to do something, they did it. And if you told them you was going to do something, Chad, they expect you to do it. So that's what I did respect about them. And I met a lot of good people. And Chad, I'm going to tell you this story, right? About, and he passed away now. And what was this guy's name? I didn't know it at the time. His name, Jory Ballard. If you look him up, Jory Ballard, right? And I didn't know this when he was locked up down Lorton, but he was a heavyweight contender. He was under the banner of Rock Newman. He was Riddick Bowe's sparring partner, right? And he was on my cleaning detail when I was in the gym. So one particular day, the warden would give you cigarettes to pass out to your detail as a bonus. They would get paid monthly. and he would give you some cigarettes to pass out to your detail. It's like a bonus. So he called the warden, Thomas P. Gatos. He called me to the office. He gave me this big bag of cigarettes, Chad. So, the cigarettes in prison is like, it's gold. So, Chad, instead of walking through the compound, I said, I'm gonna walk around, because I didn't want to bring a lot of attention to me, because I had this big bag of cigarettes. So I goes up in the gym. I called my crew, my cleaning crew over. And, I'm thanking them for their hard work. I got the big bag of cigarettes. And out of the blue, this dude that wasn't on my detail, he must have saw me and followed me into the gym, Chad. And he snatched the bag out of my hand. Oh, yeah. Chad, he snatched the bag out of my hand. And I run into this dude sometimes on the street. So when he snatched the bag out of my hand, Chad, my reflexes, I snatched it back real quick. I turned to him and I had some choice words to him. Basically, I told him, Slim, if you ever disrespect me like that again, we're going to get it on in the gym, Chad. Because I knew I had to represent myself. Because one thing, they're going to try you, Chad. They're going to try your hand and they're going to see what you're about. And when I said that, Jerry Ballard stood up and said, yeah, and I got his back. And he was incarcerated down there, Chad. And when he said that, the dude turned around and walked out the gym. And then me and Jerry had a talk. I said, Jerry, and he was incarcerated there. And I said, Jerry, don't you ever do that again. I said, because I don't want you to put your life in jeopardy for mine. I said, I can handle me. And he's like, nah, Jeff, but you a good dude and everything. He said, don't worry about that. But Chad, I didn't know who he was at the time. I didn't find that out until years later, because he never came up in the gym and worked out. And the dude was solid, Chad. When I say no body fat, look him up. Jerry Ballard.
I believe you.
So
before we go ahead, I'm sorry.
Dudes down there.
Before we did the interview, we did talk briefly, right? Usually I don't talk to people about the interview. We talked briefly. Mm-hmm. And you had told me a story, and I don't want you to say the dude's name, but you had a confrontation with someone, and this other individual kind of pulls you up and it kind of gives you some knowledge, right? And then later on, when you're a police officer, something happens and you run back into the dude. Could you tell the people kind of what happened, what that story was, and what he told you?
Chad, I think I might have been at correctional for a month, and for that month, it was this one dude. Every day we got into it. Every day he saying a little stuff to me. Chad, I'm saying a little stuff to him. He saying a little stuff to me. I was saying a little stuff to him. So this one particular day I came in, Chad, and Lorton when you knew Lorton was stressful, for this day I wasn't having it, Chad. I was like, so when I was in a dorm called Two Down, right? They call it the Animal. 2 Up was Animal House, 2 Down. I was in 2 Down. So this particular day, Chad, this dude came up to me, and I can't remember what he said, but when he said what he said, I think I called him a bitch. I called him a bitch. And he said, bitch? He said, come see me in this room. So in 2 Down, I had this little room. I can't remember. It was like I don't remember if it was a laundry room, but it had to be at least 12 by 12, right, Chad? So I go into the room, and I'm ready to rumble this dude. He was a big fat dude, and I'm thinking to myself, I said, if he don't grab me, I'm gonna get him, Chad. And I was ready to rumble him. So he came in there, and he looked at me, he stared at me, and he said, you know what? He said, I don't even want to get no more time whooping your ass. I said, nah, nigga, you gonna get your motherfucking ass whooped. And he turned around and he walked out, Chad. And I thought I did something, Chad. But Chad, at that moment, I was really ready to rumble this dude, Chad. So when he walked out, I walked out behind him. And I'm gonna say the guy's name. There was this old timer in there named Robert Moffett, right? Because it's not embarrassing. It was a teaching lesson. See, they would teach you, Chad. He was an old timer. I think he had been down for like 20 years. He said, young fella, he said, let me holler at you for a minute. So I go to him, Chad, and I said, yeah, what's up? He said, man, you got a lot of heart. He said, but that was a dumb motherfucking thing you just did. And I was like, I'm green, Chad, because I've only been there a month. So I said, what you mean? He said, Slim, that could have been a setup. He said, man, they could have been in there ready to rob you. They could have fucked you up. They could have raped you. They could have did anything. He said, man, when you at your maddest, he said, that's when you got to be at your smartest down here. And Chad, I sat back, Chad, and that was the best thing somebody ever told me in my life. Because it applied to all situations. Even when I was a police officer on the street, it applies. When you mad, Chad, imagine how many people, good people, who are in prison for losing it one time.
For losing it one time.
Chad, I live by that to this day. When you at your mad, that's when you really got to be your smartest. You got to really think. And that's what and when he told me that, Chad, I think that's what got me through Lorton. And he used to tell me stuff from time to time. He was like my trainer. And that's why and I'm going to say this, the pipe for the mic. One thing I could say he said that was true. He said that the inmates taught him. They would teach you, Chad. If they see something in you and they see that you thorough and they see that you a good dude, they would teach you, Chad. And that's why I said I got a lot of respect for a lot of them dudes that was down there.
And then I know later on you're a police officer and something happens, right? You get
a call. This is the ironic thing, Chad. I get a call for unconscious. I'm a police officer, like you said. Stanton Road, for people in D.C., they know what Stanton Road is. And unconscious means somebody could be laying in the street drunk. They could be dead. They can just something in that nature. So I get to the apartment building, I knock on the door, and this little boy, maybe 7 years old, let me in, right? I said, man, what's up? You home by yourself? What's going on? He said, no, I'm not home by myself. He said, but my uncle is in the bathroom, and he's been in there for a long time, and he won't come out with the door locked. And he said, I've been knocking on the door, and he won't come out. So I knocked on the door, Chad. No answer. Knocked on the door, Chad. No answer. So I had to kick down the door. And I know I told you something, Chad, but I'm not going to go there. But when I kicked down the door, Chad, he was in the bathroom dead. The guy was in the bathroom dead. And Chad, the guy that was in the bathroom dead was Robert Moffett. This is the dude who schooled me. This is the dude who gave me the most important life lesson, that I cherish to this day. When he told me, when you at your maddest, you got to be your smartest. And I was the one who found him dead.
That's crazy, man. Full circle. And I want to ask you a bigger question about him, right?
About what?
I want to ask you a bigger question about that situation.
Okay.
You go to this house, little 7-year-old kid in there.
Mm-hmm.
His uncle passed away. He's there pretty much alone now. How's it make you feel? You're a police officer in D.C. This little 7-year-old boy is in the house alone. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about the 7-year-old kid, man?
I feel bad for him, Chad. And the thing about him is we called his father. I knew his father because his father was a maintenance worker at the apartment complex that I worked part-time at. And I had talked to Moffett while he was on the street. And his brother, they looked like they're identical twins. So he knew I knew his brother. So I called his brother and I told him, what was going on. And he came and got his son. But I really felt bad for him.
How many kids you encounter on the street and you think to yourself, like, they're just young kids, man. And they don't have a shot, man, because of, whatever's going on in their community, their parents. You ever think like, man, these kids ain't got a shot, man?
Yeah, Chad. I spent just about my whole career in Southeast D.C. So people in D.C. know 7th District Police Station, 2455 Alabama Avenue. So I was in the worst part of the city. So, Chad, a lot of kids don't have a shot because, Chad, when you living in the house, and I'm not going to say, when you come up in that round, you might have okay, let me give you an example of a situation, Chad. We had an auto theft unit. And I was coming down the street, and the auto theft guy had locked this, I'm not going to say, well, he had this kid under arrest for stealing the car. And when I went over to the car, Chad, the kid could barely see over the car. He could barely see over the dashboard. He was a small kid. So, and I'm not gonna say the kid was under arrest. He was in handcuffs. So I said, man, let me take him home. So, Chad, he let me take this kid home. I took him home. I knocked on his door. And when his mother came to the door, you could tell she was a crackhead, Chad. The house wasn't furnished. There was no food in the house, Chad. There was no food in the refrigerator because I got to know this family. And Chad, at that moment, I went grocery shopping for them. See, a lot of people think police officers get stereotyped. Don't get me wrong. You got a lot of bad police officers out there. You got a lot of good police officers. What I'm saying is everybody's an individual. You got to view people individually, you know. And I took that moment to connect with that family, Chad. And throughout my career, I used to go check on them, make sure they was all right. If they didn't have any food, I'm gonna go get them some food, Chad.
That act of kindness might have changed his life.
That's the type of environment these kids was growing up in. So a lot of them don't have a shot, Chad.
See it all the time in my own community, man. And
no, you do. I heard about Rochester.
I try to do things, man. I drive through the hood and I do small things for people, man, because you know what? Mm-hmm. It makes me feel good. And it makes me feel good to know that, hey, man, maybe this kid's going to eat today, right? Maybe this kid's going to have a jacket this year for the winter instead of walking around with a long sleeve shirt on. The sleeves are falling off. And that stuff does bother me, man.
Chad, I've done all that in our community. So, I understand. I'm an advocate,
100%. Let me take you back to Lorton. I know you're working in the gym and, we had the plumber on and I know he said some things about, a lot of the cops were scared and they wouldn't help each other. And, maybe he kind of insinuated because he was a white guy that worked there, he didn't have too much backup. What are your thoughts on that interview and the things that he had to say?
Chad, I'm a good reader of people, and so are you. And I'm saying that to Chad because I watched you when you was interviewing him, and I saw some of the things he said even disturbs you. And I'm gonna say this particular thing, and I'm not gonna talk bad about that guy because I don't know him, and he might be a good dude. That's just not the type of person I am. But I am gonna say this, Chad. He said Mike. Right?
Kevin, I think.
Kevin said he walked into a unit. He saw a female officer sleep. He saw some inmates messing with her clothes, and he didn't do anything. And you gave him that look, Chad. I saw that. And you couldn't believe it. Chad, you gave him that look. I almost fell out the chair. Because Chad, even if he didn't want to get them inmates in trouble because he thought they was gonna come back and harm him, Chad, all he had to do was tell them inmates to get away from him, wake her up, and say, "Look, hey, get yourself together." But let me put some context to that, Chad. He made it seem like officers was just down to sleep. Chad, did he know he was working anywhere from 60 to 80 hours a week? Sleep can catch up to you, Chad. And it was mandatory because, Chad, one thing about a prison, you have to have a certain amount of officers working each shift. If you don't have that number, you're not going home. Some officers are going to be drafted. They're not going home. So that lady could have been tired. She could have been work. She could have had worked the shift before. And he left her hanging, Chad. Chad, let me tell you this. If the administration knew about that, he would have been fired. If the officers knew about that, no, they wouldn't have backed him up, Chad. They wouldn't have backed him up, Chad, because he didn't back her up. But yet he's saying he didn't know if the officers would back him up, but he didn't back this young lady up. And Chad, the officers will come back here because one thing about Lorton and inmates, and you could ask Fly this. If you hurt an officer down Lorton, it was going to be some consequences. Now, I'm not going to say officers, staff. If you hurt our staff member down Lorton, there's going to be some consequences and repercussions. But I'm going to say this too, Chad. The inmates who did that, they knew it was coming their way. They already knew it before they did it, but they said that they're going to do it anyway. That's just the way Lorton was.
Yes, it is. I'm interested
about that, Chad. They knew it was coming their way, Chad, and they didn't press charges. They didn't sue when you did it, when you came back to them in that manner, because they knew what they did was going to bring that consequence to them back. That was back then.
That's what I'm interested in asking you that, because it was such a dangerous place. People are, the prisoners got knives, they're stabbing, really no fist fights. Right. But things got out of line. I mean, did the officers put the beats on some of the prisoners?
Chad, you say that officers just went around and abused prisoners down low, and that wasn't the case, because you got to realize a lot of us is from D.C. We had to go back to D.C. Chad, you know how many inmates who got out of prison that I ran into on the street while I was working in Lorton? One of the main dudes who said when he see me on the street, he was going to crush me. He said this every day for years. When I see you on the street, I'm going to crush you. And I had it in my head. And I said, "Can I tell you what? When you do see me," I said, "just come to me straight up. Come to me straight up. Let's do this, man to man." Chad, and I really had it in my head when I saw this dude on the street. We was going to rumble, because he told me this, Chad, every day for years. Chad, and I saw him on the street. I was at the barbershop, Top Hat Barbershop on Silver Hill Road. And I'm sitting in a chair and I'm reading a magazine, Chad. And you know how you could just sense somebody, I just sensed somebody staring at me, Chad. So, Chad, I looks up, and this the dude who say he's gonna crush me when he see me. He been telling me this for years down low. So when I saw it, I threw the magazine down. I jumped up. I threw my hands up at him, Chad, and he looked at me and he laughed. And when he laughed, he came to me and he said, "Tough," and he said, "Tough Slim," and he came. He said, "Look here, man, that was that Lorton stuff, man. I was just trying you, man. He said, "Man, it's not even like that." Chad, and I ran into him several times on the street, but we had to come back to the city. I had to come back. I'm still here. So I always treated them dudes with respect, Chad, because I knew I could get it. I wasn't feared by no inmate, but I was respected. And that's the difference. I wasn't feared, Chad. I was respected.
I had a black officer in Coleman like that, man. He do what you do, man. But he was real respectful. And his first day, he stood up on the table. He said, "Hey, man, as long as you ain't taking it, you ain't robbing, and you ain't killing, we're going to get along. I'm going to leave you alone. You leave me alone." And people respected that.
Chad, I was. But you had some officers, they went hard, Chad. So how could they be scared when they going hard at all times? But
I want to ask you this.
He said that officers were scared being chased across the compound. I was down there 9 years. I've never seen an officer get chased across the compound. That's just me, Chad. And I was there 9 years. And I wasn't in the dorm for 5 minutes, coming in and out, fixing stuff, leaving out. I was in dorms. I was in cell blocks and everything.
Feel like the cops had each other's backs?
No question. But like I said, Chad, it was like we was down there abusing them dudes, because we had to come back to the city. You see what I'm saying?
I understand. That's why I want to ask you. When you're in the barbershop, you're off duty. You got that thing. You got that thing on you when you're out in public?
No, Chad, I didn't carry a gun. I didn't carry a gun when I was a police officer when I came home, believe it or not.
You got to have a gun out there on the street, right?
On duty, Chad.
So when you're off duty, you don't keep the gun on you.
I don't, Chad.
You're a better man than me, I'll tell you that. So anyway, you work the visiting room
on me 5% of the time. But now that I'm doing this interview, I might carry it more.
Oh, you're gonna be all right, man. Ain't no one gonna be mad at you, man. We do good things over here. Let me ask you this: you work in the visiting room. You're in Lorton.
Mm-hmm.
People, a bunch of stuff happens with Fly. He ends up getting charged.
Right.
What's it like? And I'm sure you met his sister, right? And she ends up in prison.
Yeah, I met Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa was a regular visitor, and I like Mona Lisa, Chad. If you met her, she was a very pleasant person. When Fly and his sister and them got arrested, I wasn't at that facility at that time. I went up to the correctional treatment facility to help open that up. So, but I did know Mona, and yeah, I knew Mona. So what was your question, Chad? I'm sorry. I was just thinking back because I heard she passed away in 2016 or something. Did she pass?
I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly when, but I know that Fly.
To hear because Mona was I like Mona. She had a beautiful spirit about her. So that's what I can say about that.
When you find out she gets all that time, were you like, wow?
Chad, and I got to be honest with you about this. There's no secrets in Lorton. There's no secrets in prison. Let me say that. There's no secrets in prison. And I'm going to tell you, and I'm talking to you and I'm talking to Fly, and I'm going to tell you, because I never saw none of that myself, even though I know some of the officers was caught up. Because if you're not rolling like that, you're not going to see it. They're not going to do it around you, right? So, but I could tell Fly this. And this is what I heard. I heard he was doing it. I heard he was definitely bringing in drugs. And I also heard he was supporting his family on the street from the drug sales. So, and I'm not a narrow-minded thinker. So a part of me had to respect that. You see what I'm saying? If you in prison and you supporting your family on the street, so, and like I said, I don't personally have anything against Fly because he never done anything to me. He was always respectful to me. And I'm going to say this, when Fly came over from maximum security to medium security, he wasn't going to do anything to go back to max. So had I encountered him at max, maybe he would have been more aggressive towards me. I don't know. But I encountered him at medium security where he was glad to be there. And I'm going to say this about Fly. I've never seen him in a mess hall, so that just shows that he was doing well.
He was definitely doing well. Let me ask you this, because, all the violence that happens at Lorton, what's one of the worst things that you've seen?
I've seen a lot of bad things, Chad, but I'm going to tell you, let me see. As far as Chad, I've seen the worst thing. I'm just going to give you a few things, Chad. This one when I was down Lorton, I had 3 dorm. This is after I had to visit my hall. I'm kind of established down. I had to visit my hall for like a year, and I wanted to run a dormitory, right? I wanted to get that experience. So they put me in 3 dorm. And this particular day, it was one white boy on the compound, Chad. His name was, I can't remember his first name, but his last name was Seaton. Chad, you kind of remind me of him too. He used to wear his hat to the side. He used to have a little pimp. He used to pimp. And when I used to be sitting at the desk, he used to always come to the dormitory, hit the desk. What's up, Jeff? And I think he said he was from Potomac Gardens. You're not from this area, so Potomac Gardens is another notorious neighborhood. And he's a white dude. He said he was from, I think, Potomac Gardens, if I'm not mistaken. And I could be. But this particular day, Chad, they had after the trial was over, they had leftover cake, right? So they was giving cake out to, the prisoners who wanted their line up to give the cake. And I found this out after the whole incident happened, what occurred. So his name was Seaton. I'm gonna call him Seaton. They had gave him the last piece of cake. He was approached by 2 dudes. And they like, man, let me get that off you. He said, man, I ain't giving you shit. And immediately He knew what it was. He come running in my dorm. And when he come running in the dorm, I ain't gonna say run, he came walking fast. I knew something was up, but I didn't know. He come walking in the dorm. He didn't say, "What's up, Jeff?" He just goes to the back, his back. Right behind him, a few seconds behind him, I see two dudes, Chad. They coming in with knives. They look at me, they got the knives in the hand, Chad. They look at me, and I knew what was going on. So all I can do, Chad, is put my back up against the wall and call for help, call for assistance. So seconds later, the two dudes with knives, they come running out the dorm, and the white dude sitting, he behind him with a pole, swinging it. He got stabbed, they got bruised up, but that was over a piece of cake, Chad. A piece of cake.
Man, listen, seen some crazy things happen. I've seen people get killed. I didn't personally see it, but heard stories of at Pollock where dude got killed over a piece of chicken, man.
Let me give you the ping pong ball story. Chad, I like that. I like the way you do that, Chad. So anyway, this one I'm at the correctional treatment facility. And when I get to the unit, I look inside the unit, before the officer come and let me in. I'm looking. That's the way I was. I'm looking to see what's going on. And the officer come let me in. We put everybody in for count. We do the count. He takes the count slip. He's ready to get off. He takes the count slip. He goes down to the command center. The count clear. We let everybody out. This dude, I'm gonna say his last name. His name was Fox. He said, "Jeff, man," he said, "You got any ping pong balls?" So I go into our supply closet. I didn't see any ping pong balls. So I called down to R&D. I said, "Look here, Lil John, do we got any ping pong balls?" And then he's like, "Nah, Jeff, we out. We got to get something in." He said, "I got to order something." I said, "Okay, cool." So I remember when I looked through the dorm, when I looked through the window, I saw this dude. I'm gonna say his last name because I don't want to say first last name, but dude's a Lorton. No, his last name was, I'm gonna say Shipman. That's his real last name, Shipman. I saw Shipman with a ping pong ball when I was coming in the unit before everybody went back. So Fox didn't tell me Shipman had a ping pong ball because he wasn't that type of dude. He was a real serious guy, and he's not going to do that. So, but I saw Shipman with the ping pong ball. So I go up to Shipman's cell, and I said, "Shipman, give me this ping pong ball." I said, "I saw you with a ping pong ball. Shipman, let me get that off you." And it nicest, "All right, Jeff," he gives me the ping pong ball, Chad. I walk down the stairs, and as I'm giving the ping pong ball to Fox, Shipman hits him with a knife. And at that moment, again, what I got to do, I'm putting my back up against the wall. When he hit Fox with a knife, Fox hit him with a hook, knocked him to the ground and started stomping him out. And that was over a ping pong ball. But let me say this here where I got you, where I got this platform. Fox, if you're watching this, man, my bad. It's my bad, Fox. You didn't tell me Shipman had a ping pong ball. He must have assumed you told me. You wasn't that type of dude, man. That was just me trying to get a ping pong ball so y'all could continue to play. But Fox, I apologize for that.
Ask you this, Jeff, before we get ready to close up, right?
Mm-hmm.
All the things that you had seen in there, did it affect you mentally and emotionally, or was it just the job?
Yeah, Chad, let me tell you this. A lot of correctional officers had PTSD. I don't have it because I think I knew how to deal with the stress. I could compartmentalize things, and but yeah, it definitely affected me, Chad. And I think that we had touched on this earlier. I mean, I was married at the time to my first wife, and when I went home at night, I was short. I wasn't nothing physical. It was just that I was short tempered. She would say something, I might snap because it had an effect on you, Chad. When you come to work every day, and I said it before, it's like you come to work this is when you knew, Chad. Later on, my first year and a half, it was rough. But after that, Chad, you get the groove, inmates start to know you. You get the handle, you know how to handle things, you know what's going on, you're not green no more, you know all the moves, and it gets better. But even at that moment, even at that time, Chad, you still gotta know where you at. You still never relax, Chad. You still gotta keep your head on the swivel at all times. And like I said before, it's like a forever test you can't fail. You gotta pass every test in Lord. You can't get an E, you gotta get all A's. And that's the only way I made it out, Chad, unscathed, because I got all A's.
That's what's up. You become calloused after a while, after you see so much violence. It doesn't bother you as much, right?
Chad, I hate to say it, you do, even on the streets when you see gunshot victims and people dying, it really don't bother you. But you got to be mindful of that, too. So even though it might not bother you, you got to realize that they got loved ones, they got family members. You got to be mindful of that, Chad. You always got to show humility, and that's the way I just deal with it, Chad. I show love to people on the street. I'm just, like I said, Chad. I never was feared, but I definitely was respected. Just the way I carried myself, and when
sure. You know, there's something that you said earlier, right, that I just want to mention, where you said good people sometimes do bad things. And when you're in that environment and you meet people and you interact with people every day, you can pick out, like, man, a lot of these dudes are good dudes. A lot of people in prison are good people that, you know, made a bad choice that they deeply regret, right?
Yeah. Chad, and I'm going to say this. There's some dudes that I really trust that was incarcerated, that earned your trust. I would trust them before I would trust people on the street.
You know what? In them academies, I know that they teach people, because I've talked to officers, and, you know, I spent a lot of time in prison. I spent almost 18 years straight, where they teach you, like, hey, man, don't never trust these dudes, man. They're always watching you. You know, they're learning your every move. You got to be leery of these people. They teach them that shit in the academies, right?
But that's all true, Chad. They watch your every move, and they're looking for one sign of weakness, Chad. If they see it, they're going to pounce. And I couldn't show that. And I didn't. Because, Chad, you might have heard this story. Did you hear this story of an inmate? He made a replica of a key a correction officer had just by watching it every day, looking at it, and it worked.
I did hear a story like that, and they made the imprint and all of that, right?
That's how they are, Chad. That's how you got some smart, intelligent dudes out there. They're going to watch your every move like a hawk. And I'm going to say this, Chad. Men respect men. They respect men. They're going to try you. But if you a man and you fair, you can make it through. And I'm going to say this, Chad. They had I read this article, and they were saying how many correctional officers got assaulted in a 3-year period down Lorton. And when you did a math, Chad, they averaged one correctional officer every 3 days. That's a lot of correctional officers, Chad. Chad, and I did 9 years, and I never got assaulted. So I think I passed with A+.
I hear you. I believe so. Let me say this, right? I don't think all prisoners watch the cops. I think that there's a few weird dudes that'll watch you, but man, out of the whole prison, maybe 2 or 3. That's my opinion. Where they're like, they got nothing better to do, man. When I was in prison, I was too busy to do that, man. I'm doing legal work. I'm taking programs. I'm teaching classes. I'm concentrating on getting out of prison. But you do have them dudes that are stuck there. That, you know, they do that, but not on the level that I think they teach in the academy. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, but they definitely will study you, and they definitely looking for a sign of weakness. If they see it, Chad, they're going to pounce on it. And was this scared correction officers down there? Absolutely. Was it? I mean, everybody's scared in prison.
100%. I mean, the prisoners are scared, the staff are scared. And if you're not, then you definitely have some mental health issues, because anything can happen at any given time. Prison is always subject to change.
You know how many ex-inmates that I ran into on the street and I had conversations with? They were like, Jeff, boy, I was terrified down there, man. I'm just glad I made it out. I mean, it's true. but you can't show it.
Man, I left Big Sandy, and when I was on that bus, I was like, whew, I'm glad I'm leaving this spot here, boy.
Hey, Chad, back to you. You know, Big Sandy. I don't know too much about the feds. I hear a lot about it. I've read up on some stuff. And a state prison might be, and Lorton is a state prison. It might be ran a little different state prison than federal prisons, but that was Lorton, Chad.
The most dangerous prisons in the country, brother, and you survived it. Look, Jeff, I appreciate you coming on, man. Anything you want to say before we get ready to go?
No, all I got to do is say, Chad, if young guys watching this who have never been to prison, all I got to do is, this is what I say, Chad, for people who haven't been to prison who watch your program. Don't listen to me, but listen to Chad. You did, what, 18 years?
17 years, 5 months, 21 days straight.
Listen to Eon. You know what I'm saying? Listen to Big Sykes. If you listen to them and you still want to go down that road after they give you, if they telling you, just don't listen to me. I was a correctional officer. Listen to people like yourself, Chad, who've been through it. And if they don't take your advice, Chad, or Eon advice, or Fly advice, or Psych advice, you think they're going to say, take my advice? But I tell you what, if you do take that route, you better be prepared because you don't know what's going to happen because your safety is not in your hand.
For sure, man. Listen, I appreciate you coming on. I'm going to tell people if you like what we're doing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, Blood on the Razor Wire TV. Until tomorrow, with respect, we're out.